There's a question that I'm sure has been on all of your minds recently.
We've had one King's Quest, yes. But what about second King's Quest? It goes without saying that if you haven't checked out the first video I did in this classic adventure series, go back and watch that one first, else you might be missing a little bit of context. King's Quest II Romancing the Throne released in 1985, hot off the heels of the first game, once again helmed by Roberta Williams and initially released on DOS and the PC Junior. And there's not a huge amount to add development-wise for this game. I can tell you that Scott Murphy and Mark Crowe joined the team for this one though, and those two would soon become the brains behind the Space Quest series. You see, King's Quest ended up being sort of a training ground for Sierra employees, letting them play in one world before letting them loose to make their own. Another example of this being Jane Jansen, who worked on King's Quest VI, then went on to create the Gabriel Knight series, a personal favourite of mine. Story-wise, King's Quest II follows Graham as he searches for a queen to share his kingdom with, and begin his legacy. And when the magic mirror shows him his destiny, he travels to the land of Kolyma to find his bride-to-be, Valanice. It's a simple story, one that involves travelling to the depths to seek an audience with King Neptune, avoiding a wolfy death with Little Red Riding Hood, and dealing with the likes of an evil witch called Hagatha. How very exciting. However, I do want to take a moment to apologise to you all though, since it is October, and this isn't a Halloween video. And well, you're not actually getting one this year. I am sorry. If I could make Dracula turn up in this game out of the blue, I totally would. But that isn't going to happen. Maybe next year I'll do another special. For now, I can only offer apologies. So let's move on. The title for this game, Romancing the Throne, starts a whole new tradition for King's Quest as well. It's a parody of Romancing the Stone, an adventure movie from 1984 starring Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas and Danny DeVito. Why does it parody this particular title? I suppose it was a recent film from the time, and it's an appropriate pun for the story as well. Otherwise, I don't know, but King's Quest would go on to make puns for many of its later entries. Overall, there's not a huge amount different in King's Quest II compared to the first game, but we'll begin by looking a little bit at the short story added with the 1987 re-release of the game written by Annette Childs. While the game itself follows the same basic premise, it is just that, basic. This little short story fleshes out the tale a little bit more. A year following Graham's crowning as King of Daventry, a vision of his predecessor Edward appears in the mirror, telling him that he needs to marry and have children, or else Graham will suffer the same fate as Edward. And so, at the suggestion of the Prime Minister apparently, Graham puts on a festival, inviting the ladies of Daventry to make their case for queenhood. But none of them are Graham's cup of tea, and he begins to lose hope of finding the right partner for him and for the Kingdom of Daventry, until the mirror shows him another vision. A beautiful woman with auburn hair and blue eyes, whom Graham is immediately smitten by. Also, Graham has a mustache in this iteration. I didn't know where else to slip that information, but I needed to throw it out there. I don't like it. Moving on. This mirror told Graham that this was the maiden Valanice, stolen away from her homeland of Kolyma by the evil witch Hagatha, and trapped in an enchanted land, locked in a quartz tower, guarded by a ferocious beast. And so the journey becomes very clear, to find the door to this enchanted land and save the girl in the tower. It's time for King's Quest II, everyone. Let's do this. The intro of King's Quest II relays a lot of this same information, but a lot more briefly. What I want to focus on though is the animation of Graham walking. I love it. Look at the power of that chin. If only his in-game sprite was this cool. But with that, the game begins. Upon arriving in Kolyma, Graham appears to be on a beach, and this structure is largely similar to the first game, albeit a little bit more linear. You'll see what I mean. There are several places to explore here: a church, a quaint little cottage, a tree with a door, a castle with a moat, and a witch's cave. And it's all built in a way that needs mapping out, much like Daventry did. After all, this land is also full of danger. The witch can catch you, a strange enchanter can turn you into a frog, and a dwarf can appear and steal your goods, the little blighter. It's always worth looking around to see what you can find, because most items you come across will be used for key puzzles. Or they'll simply just be treasure that bumps up your score. And you want that high score, don't you? And once again, the game uses the parser system with keyboard controls. Might be a deal breaker for some players, but I actually like typing commands, it's fun. The first major thing we're going to do is head across this bridge and to this door. A strange magic door just standing here, which surely must lead to the enchanted land that holds Valanice hostage. Alas, this door is locked, but there is an inscription that reads, "Whosoever chooses to seek the key for this door will undoubtedly make a splash." Odd, whatever could this mean? Now obviously the inscription here is a hint as to where the key is located, and the phrase "make a splash" points toward the ocean. but as you may well be aware, Graham is not a great swimmer. I mean, I will remind you that you need to physically tell him to swim so he doesn't drown. So we'll probably need a little bit of external help for this segment. As it happens, after you inspect the inscription, a mermaid will appear on this rock here. We'll just have to win her over. Graham's charming personality isn't quite enough though, so we'll have to give her something first. And there's very little indication of what she actually wants here. But I can tell you now that the answer is flowers. Acquiring these flowers though requires a little bit of subterfuge. So remember that quaint little cottage I mentioned? Well, it's actually the cottage of a certain grandma from a fairy tale favourite. A grandma that will very occasionally turn into a wolf and gobble Graham up. The wolf pounces on you. My, what big teeth he has. Good enough to eat you with, my dear. Of course, this does mean we can find Little Red Riding Hood skipping merrily around here. She has the flowers we need, but she won't just give them up, we have to trade for them. As luck would have it, I stole a basket of goodies earlier from Grandma's mailbox. I know, I'm terrible. Red Riding Hood was worried because she misplaced this basket. This feels a little bit unethical. I stole something from Grandma for Red Riding Hood to give to Grandma. Well, I got the flowers at least, but that was a little bit cheeky, Graham. Also, I feel like I have to mention this weird little quirk of the game where the parser allows a lot of potential words to refer to these characters. Girl, lady, woman, the ones you'd expect a parser to allow. However, the player can also use very misogynistic words too, and the game allows it. Quite bizarrely, King's Quest II has a pool of words that are deemed valid for female characters, but it doesn't discern between any of them depending on the character, which means you can refer to Red Riding Hood as a mermaid, an old hag, or even as Valanice. Now again, a lot of the words it allowed are just straight up nasty, or very weird. I mean, who did this? I would blame Al Lowe, but he actually only did the music for this game. It's a part of this game's development that I find simultaneously fascinating and repulsive. But yeah, giving the flowers to the mermaid means she'll summon a giant seahorse that Graham can ride into the depths. Naturally, it also protects him from drowning, I suppose, but that's never clarified. If you expect to know why everything is the way it is in a King's Quest game, you're not gonna have a good time. You've really gotta roll with the punches. So here we gain an audience with the mighty Neptune, and we can have a king-to-king conversation about needing that key. With the aim of diplomacy, we'll just have to hear him out on what he has to say. Glub, 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 glub. How dare he say that to me? Okay, so this does mean that we don't know what he wants in trade, but if you've explored the land diligently enough, it means you'll likely have already come across this trident just laying on a beach. Also, you can soft-lock yourself by giving it to the mermaid, which means it is linked to this quest, because she just runs away and takes it back to Neptune. And when you offer it to King Neptune, he opens up this clamp at the side and offers you the key as well as a bottle with a piece of cloth in it. Well, that was nice of him. I will point out that if you open the clam yourself with the trident and then give it to him, he will smite you down. So yeah, lovely guy. A glub 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 to you, my watery friend, and farewell. Taking the key to the door, we unlock it to find another door. Of course, it was never going to be that simple, was it? Much like King's Quest I, there are once again 3 magical MacGuffins, in this instance keys, to find across the land. Unlike the first game though, it presents them to you in a linear order. And for our second door, the inscription reads, "Whosoever chooses to seek the key for this door should set their sights high." Well, the previous one told us to go into the ocean, this one seems to be telling us to reach for the sky. But what does that mean? How do we get there? Clearly we'll need some kind of ride like the Condor in the first game, but where? One out-of-the-way location in Kolyma is this little antique shop in the corner, curated by an old woman, and also in here is a conspicuous old lamp. But as per usual, we'll need something to trade for it. What you need to give her is this nightingale found in a cage, which was very clearly stolen by Hagatha for some reason. The game doesn't really tell you why, and the old lady certainly doesn't make it clear that a bird was even stolen in the first place. But hey, this is an adventure game from 1985. You very much have to fill in a lot of the blanks yourself. Stealing this bird can prove to be a little bit complicated though. If the witch is in the cave cooking something up, you can't simply take the bird, because it'll make some noise and alert the witch. so you have to cover the cage using the cloth found in the bottle that Neptune gave you. Then you can make an escape. Conversely, if Hagatha is elsewhere, you can pretty much just take the cage, I believe. I still cover it to be sure, but hey, these games just make me anxious, alright? Oh yeah, there's also an Easter egg that can appear outside Hagatha's cave. Every now and then, the Batmobile will appear. Wow. It's pretty rare that this will happen. I mean, in my own personal playthroughs, I've only seen this once, and it was during a stream I did of the game, where I happened upon it by complete accident and immediately left the screen. So I got this lake, oh my god! The Batman Easter egg! I thought it was something else! I can't believe we got the Batman Easter egg on our first look at the screen. Probably won't see it again, so that split second you just saw, if you blinked you missed it. When the Nightingale is returned, the old lady shopkeeper is delighted and offers you her old oil lamp as a reward. What you need to do with this lamp is obvious. Rub it. Rub it good. You can do this 3 times, and surprise surprise, each time a genie pops out. The first time he gives you a magic carpet, an ideal mode of transport for showing you the world, and also shining shimmering splendor no doubt. The second time you rub the lamp, he gives you a beautiful sword. That's nice and all, but Graham isn't really a fighter. And the third time, you get a leather bridle, which if you don't know is the muzzle thing that you put on a horse. I mention that because it'll be important in just a moment. Ride the magic carpet and it'll take you up to the top of a mountain, which is guarded by...
Graham, watch out! A poisonous snake!
Thank you, Cedric. This snake is not friendly and approaching it will kill you, as you might expect. So that's how it's gonna be, huh? Well, how about I slash this snake to ribbons with my sword? Haha! Well, that wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. Feels like a bit of a Pyrrhic victory. Let's reload. How else could we deal with this problem? Preferably in a non-violent way. The only other thing we were given is this bridle, but surely throwing the bridle on the snake won't... Oh, come on. Are you joking me? The snake was cursed? And the bridle... Okay, right then. This is one of the more infamous puzzles in the King's Quest series. Maybe not if and cover Grogapum infamy, but still. Throwing the bridle on the snake returns it to its original form as a beautiful Pegasus. This wonderful creature was cursed by the enchanter, the one that you can run into in the land below. But how is anyone ever supposed to know that? There are no hints about it. This enchanter turns Graham into a frog after all. And I'm no scientist, but I want to point out that that's a different animal from a snake. And there's nothing really to indicate that the bridle will break the spell.
In fact, it's kind of the opposite. If you inspect the sword, it actually has a snake on the handle. I mean, come on.
This whole segment is full of puzzles that now feel incomplete. And I know it's just the way that adventure games were in 1985, but it would have been so easy to fix. Almost entirely with the shopkeeper character. It could simply be the case that when you meet her, she tells you how the witch Hagatha has ruined the land by kidnapping Valanice, cursing the land's Pegasus protector, and stealing her nightingale. If we had all of this information, the puzzles would flow pretty naturally as a result, I think. But this is hindsight speaking. And it's not anything that wouldn't be picked up on in adventure games to come. Anyhow, if you save the Pegasus, you're given a magical sugar cube that protects you from poison. A very esoteric item, but I'm sure it'll come in handy. And the golden key for the door is found in the cave back here. There is also a hole here, and when you look into it, you get given a brazen advert for the first space quest, which is kind of adorable. I love that. Maybe that'll be the next Sierra game I talk about. With everything acquired, let's ride our carpet back to safety and go over this bridge. Oh, goddammit. I always fall off this screen because of the way it's set up. You're always in harm's way when you enter from the south. This bridge on the whole is a little bit of a nasty trap, actually. Every time you cross it, you'll notice that you gain a point. But is this exploitable? No, because it's actually just tracking the amount of times that you cross. And if you cross even one more time than the game wants you to, the bridge will break, killing you. And you might not realize this until you're in the last part of the game, which is evil. And classic Sierra. So essentially, if you go over to reread an inscription even one time, you softlock yourself. You can't beat the game. Mad stuff. Anyhow, the second door unlocks to reveal, you guessed it, door number 3. Our third and final inscription reads, "Whosoever chooses to seek the last key must have a stout heart." This one is a little bit more obscure. A stout heart? That could mean anything. I would assume though that it's simply telling us to be brave. Though again, that is kind of obtuse. At least, there is one location we are yet to explore. The castle in the centre of the map that is surrounded by the moat. It certainly looks a bit spooky, so reaching it would be brave. The question is, how do we get there?
Well, once the third inscription's been read, this ghoulish ferryman appears outside the moat, ready to take Graham over. You can give him treasure as payment, but if I've learned anything about early King's Quest, it's that there's always another way. So instead, we can trick him into thinking that Graham is someone else, perhaps the owner of this castle. And there are a couple of items you can find which help with this. While it's not 100% clear what these should be, a bit of trial, error, and exploration may have gotten you these already.
They come from Grandma, after Graham does something to help her. You see, she's not actually feeling very well, so we need to find something to help her feel better. What's the cure-all solution? It's chicken soup, obviously. That fixes anything. The dwarf is cooking some in his little treehouse, and we can just steal the whole pot of it. I would feel bad, but that guy is always stealing from me, so he kind of deserves it. Also be careful on this ladder, it's a doozy. The soup is delicious, and it helps Grandma a treat.
Good soup.
As a reward, she tells us to look under the bed, giving us a cloak and ring with a red jewel. Fancy. Wearing both of these means the ferryman thinks you're someone else, presumably the owner of this big castle. Why, Grandma, who have you been stepping out with? And he'll ferry you across the other side to this maze of thorns. However, these thorns are poisonous, and will kill you if you touch them. But we did get that sugar cue from the Pegasus, which makes this a bit of a cakewalk. The entrance to the castle is guarded by a couple of ghosts with some legally distinct beeps and bloops that sound like Michael Jackson's Thriller. They really could get away with almost anything back then, huh?
You need to keep your disguise to get past the ghosts, or else they'll possess Graham and make him walk into the thorns. And now, we can make our way into the castle. A very dark castle.
And I want to apologise again, because who does this castle belong to? The dark cloaks, the undead minions, the red ring, the lavish interior. There's even a coffin in the basement. This place belongs to Count Dracula. No, I'm not joking, and I'm apologising because this has been a Halloween video the entire time. I lied to you all. Roll out those red borders. Dracula's castle isn't quite as dangerous as you might think. Yeah, there are ways to die here, but most of those are just the average Sierra falling off stairs deaths. Dracula's best weapon here is a lack of safety regulations. The golden key is of course found in the basement, which we need to light up using a candle found in the left staircase. And don't forget to take this perfectly preserved ham in the dining room. All the other food is rotten, but this one's alright. And the golden rule of King's Quest is of course, always take the food because you'll probably need it for something. Heading into the basement and being careful on the stairs, we can usually find Dracula sleeping in this coffin. It is a very similar situation to the witch and the Grandma Wolf though. Sometimes he's there and sometimes he isn't. If the Count is feeling a little bit shy, you can simply leave and re-enter. Just be careful when opening his coffin though, because if you take too long, he does suck Graham dry.
But if you're not in the mood to be a Capri Sun, we'll need to become a vampire slayer. This involves finding 3 items: a stake, a mallet, and a cross. The stake is leaning against a random tree, the mallet is hidden in a hole in another tree, the cross takes a little bit more effort. Now, one location in Kolyma is this church. Inside of it, a monk is praying diligently.
And this is actually the location of my favourite death in King's Quest 2. It's very tricky to get the priest's attention. He won't talk to you at all despite your best efforts. And I remember the first time I played this, and out of frustration I typed, "Kill monk." Anyone who would kill a man of the cloth doesn't deserve to play this game. Therefore, we will end it. Oh my god, literally. Like Roberta Williams emerges from the heavens to smite Graham down if you try to harm the priest. I love this, it is so funny. And the guy still doesn't even react. Yeah, just ignore the dead body there, dude. What you need to do is pray alongside the monk, and he graciously offers you his cross.
Once you've got your vampire slaying kit assembled, you can simply type kill Dracula.
I do want to make it very clear though that Dracula has no presence in this game other than this one moment, at least in this original version. Graham literally disguises himself as Dracula, turns up at his house uninvited, kills him in his bed, and takes his golden key from his coffin. Dracula was literally minding his own business here, taking a nice little nap, and we committed premeditated murder. Like, I know he's an evil fiend, but damn. It's a bit harsh, Graham. You can also gain an extra silver key by killing him, which unlocks a trunk that gives you more treasure. Ooh, a tiara? For me, Dracula? You shouldn't have. I think you can get away with not killing Dracula, but you won't get the best score if you do. The game incentivizes home invasion and murder. That's wild. But with this, we finally have our last key, and we can take it to the door to make it to the Enchanted Lands beyond. The Enchanted Lands certainly looks strange, and the colours here are totally alien, with blue grass, a crimson sky and purple seas. It's quite striking actually, in a hue saturation adjustment sort of way. Now, there aren't a lot of places to explore here, so don't expect a whole new map. This is a very linear ending sequence. Heading north leads you to a fishing net, and we'll need this to cross the Purple Sea to get to the tower. Maybe one of the fishy denizens can help us here. Once we catch a large golden fish with the net, we can free it and throw it back into the sea. And it rewards you for saving it. Saving it from the situation that we put it in. Does it not realise? I can't help but feel this is all very wrong somehow. Well, I can't look a gift golden fish in the mouth, as it offers to take Graham to the tower. After one last bit of treasure and a lovely ascent up yet another set of stairs, we can find the ferocious beast we were told of. It's a lion. I guess that's fine. I was kind of expecting something a bit more exotic, but a lion's fine, I guess. It eats Graham if he gets too close, which is kind of funny. So if we recall our golden rule, we have a delicious ham to give this guy. Enjoy, buddy. And in the tower's chamber we can find Valanice. Graham can introduce himself, kiss her, and return home, thus ending King's Quest 2. And we even get to see the wedding. Look who has turned up. Neptune, the dragon from King's Quest 1, always a pleasure. Dracula's alive again. There's the king of the leprechauns, and a literal shark is here. Yeah, great wedding. I bet the reception was a hoot. But there you have it. I'll be honest, King's Quest 2 in some ways feels like a significant step back from its predecessor. Yes, the structure is largely the same, but it does seem to lack the extra choice the original featured. You may recall you could solve problems in multiple ways in King's Quest 1, but that's mostly absent here. Technically, you can approach some puzzles more violently, but the results are kind of inconsistent. With the snake, it makes things harder, and with Dracula, it just allows you to get more points. It just doesn't really feel like King's Quest 2 encourages the player to try different things. And while it's a decent adventure game overall, it still features many of the same unwelcoming Sierra puzzle hurdles, and doesn't really offer many olive branches in return. And doesn't the story feel unfinished? Or at least missing something? What's the deal with Hagatha? Why do we never defeat her? I mean, she's the main villain, and yet she mostly just hangs out in a cave with a bird that she stole. Again, this is something that's remedied in the fan remake, and even in the King's Quest reboot, which actually decided to retell this particular game's story in its third episode. King's Quest 2 is a weak link, and a weak sequel. I think that's probably an uncontroversial statement. It's a shame. I do like the game, but it's a considerable step down from the first one, in almost every aspect. Happy Halloween, everyone! I know this wasn't the spookiest of adventures, but we did have Dracula. Let's be honest, I did fool a couple of you, didn't I? Next time I talk about a Sierra game though, it's probably going to be a different kind of quest. Maybe a space quest, maybe a cheeky Larry. We'll see. Let me know where your appetites lead you.